subject of this evening's talk is another side of Michael's work, and his major emphasis during the past decade has been using the camera as an agent for social change. And he'll speak to us this evening about three subjects that he has investigated closely with the camera as a tool: factories, schools, and prisons. Not only have these photographs been shown nationally at Harvard, at the University of California, Berkeley, Boston, Washington, D.C., but Michael has engaged audiences nationally about the issues surrounding these three subjects: factories, schools, and prisons, and the intersections among them and between them, and especially with respect to issues of race and class. And again, really engaged audiences across the country in these important issues. His photographs have appeared on the cover of Women's Studies Quarterly and Chronicle of Higher Education, Village Voice, and a variety of printed and electronic media. Many private and public collections, including the Smithsonian, the Henry Ford Museum, the Yale University Art Gallery, the Rose Art Museum at Brandeis. There are also a number of books I could mention. I'm going to limit myself to just two. The Changing Landscape of Labor, American Workers and Workplaces. The first, actually, many of the photographs reproduced here were in an exhibition that won an award from the New York Historical Association. And behind the razor wire, portrait of a contemporary American prison system, garnered the Gustavus Myers Outstanding Book Award, as well as an award from the National Council on Crime and Delinquency. Michael is not completely new to Mount Holyoke. The exhibition, Facing Education, Portraits of Holyoke School Children, was shown at the Mount Holyoke College Art Museum in 1994. So help me welcome Michael back to campus.
Well, thank you for coming. I know you all have very busy schedules here. It's been a great couple of weeks on this campus. I've been to several different universities. I've done some different residencies, and I have to tell you that I feel warmly greeted wherever I go here on campus. And that's really important, and it's a fast feeling that you get when you come here. So thank you again for that. I'd like to begin by showing you some work. I can tell you just very briefly about what got me involved. Essentially, I was interested in learning more about the working class in this country. At the time, for me to be an assault, actually, on the working class. And what I decided to do was to go into factories that were closing, or nearly closing, and begin to document the working conditions and the lives of the working people in those factories. Because what was happening was that jobs were being shipped down south overseas with corporate globalization. There was no real community kind of factories as we have in Holyoke. Families, entire families worked in factories. And people made friends that became extended families in factories. And as a result of the closure of many of these mills and factories, people's lives were very deeply affected. And what I began doing was photographing the people, making portraits of the workers, and then interviewing them. And what I was interested in primarily was their understanding of what was going on. We were accustomed to hearing experts talking about the economy, and sometimes I think it's best to actually listen to the words of a person who's standing behind a machine to tell us what exactly is going on for that person and what they see happening in the situation. So let me begin by showing you a slide. This is a portrait of a factory worker in Holyoke. His name is Rudy Piotrowski. He works at the time he worked at Linweave Paper Company, and had a really good time getting to know this man. It's interesting how I got to do this. Essentially, I asked a worker in a rubber factory if I could take his portrait. And the conditions in the rubber factory were just horrible. You could smell the fumes everywhere. There was no ventilation. This is again in Holyoke. And I went into Paragon Rubber Company with a camera, and I found this worker standing behind this machine, and the fumes were just pouring off of it. And I said, "Could I make your portrait?" Now I had a 4x5 view camera and a tripod, and he sort of took a look at me, like, "What are you doing here?" And a guy on a forklift actually kind of kept circling around me, trying to kick me out of the place, essentially. But I befriended him, and I took the guy's picture on the forklift, and that's how we got to know each other. He cracked a smile, laughed, and let me photograph. But this worker said to me something very important. He said, "I've been working in this factory for 40 years. Nobody has ever asked to take my picture." And that's where the factory series began. Now, this is at Lingley Paper Company. This company closed about 4 months after I made this portrait. And the portrait is now hanging in several museums. The Henry Ford Museum made a mural-size portrait out of it and hung it in the entrance to their new museum. Let me show you the next picture. This picture is taken in Northampton. I think you may find it interesting that a lot of the photographs I'll be showing you tonight were actually taken locally. I drive by these brick buildings, I sort of wonder, and I'm sure you do too, what goes on inside? In some ways, as a society, we're kind of separated from the other reality, the reality behind these walled buildings, where a lot of things go on, and this is one of them. Rosemary, and she is degreasing metal shavings in a machine shop. There are mainly women working in the machine shop, which I thought was sort of interesting. At the time in Holyoke, when I photographed, I learned that a large number of the workers in those mills were women. And I also became interested in women at work in the mills and factories. Now, again, this is Lingley Paper Company, and the way I often do this to make it interesting is to set up the photograph without the people in it. So essentially, I look at the image and I make a composition. Now, if you could imagine this image without these people in it, that's the composition, okay? Then I bring them in to the image. So sometimes it's posed. But what I like is the fact that they're looking right directly at you, and they're making this kind of human contact, that these are human beings, that they have lives that I want to know about. This place closed. I actually got to know the union president of the Holyoke paper mills, and he told me that many of the workers would kind of come back to him, and he tried to keep in touch with them over the years, but a lot of them just kind of drifted off. And I'm sort of concerned about that part of society, the folks that kind of drift off when factories close. It used to be that factory work, is an entry-level position. It's a way of getting involved, getting into the economy. Now, without education, without higher education, it's very difficult to get work anywhere. And that's also an aspect of this study of my work, really, is how do people plug in? How do they plug in this particular society with so many factories closing? Image here, this is Mastex, a textile factory in Holyoke. You may wonder why they let me in these places in the first place. But I got to know the owner, and we were taking a tour through the factory, and much of the factory was new with new equipment, polyester, newer looms, but I happened to walk by the dye house on my way to the factory and saw these people working with no ventilation, and what's rising off of these vats is acid. And this is what people are doing probably today at Mastex in Holyoke. You know, we did an exhibit of this work at Heritage Park in Holyoke, and what I heard, although no faculty members came to the reception, we had a nice reception there, but what I heard was that the owners were kind of sneaking in, you know, at odd hours to kind of have a little look. And I heard back comments like, gee, do we really look that bad? Is that really how we look? Because they themselves are so connected, you know, and so it's right there in their face every day. They often don't step back and kind of get a chance to look at their own working conditions. And that's what we find here. This is the other side of the factory I was just telling you about, with the polyester fibers running off of a new loom. And this worker is untangling tangles in the loom. Can you believe this is take one? I think it's hard to believe that, you know, when you look at this image, you may think it's something that Lewis Hine did in the 30s. And he did come through, by the way, and photographed in factories locally here. But for me, it was also very exciting to actually, you know, in the 90s, to actually go and create images that could have been made 100 years ago by a Lewis Hine, or a Jacob Rees, who's another person who I enjoyed looking at his work. This worker is, what his job is to shovel these pulp fibers out of this submarine-shaped cylinder above him. Okay, they're boiled in the submarine-shaped cylinder, and he goes in there with a pitchfork and shovels it out and dumps it there, and then it's brought into the vats for the paper making process. Fumes, not fumes, but dust is just floating, you know, floating in the air. And you can see he's got a respirator, you know, hanging from his shirt, but he never wears it because they're hot. You know, they're hot to put on your face. And so he's inhaling, you know, particulates that can include all kinds of different toxic things. And, you know. They leveled this place a few years ago. This is H.B. Smith Boiler Company in Westfield. I came in there with a 4x5 camera. Again, I don't shoot with it as much as I used to, but I'm often amazed that I actually drag that thing into some of these places because there's machinery moving all around me as I'm working. And this is an interesting shot here of a worker. I use a flash, just a little hand. You know, it's dark. It's a foundry. There's hardly any light in there. And in fact, it's sort of like a dungeon. You walk through, and you know, it's just this dark. And as you see, you know, things, fire and flames rising from machines. It's sort of like walking back in time. It's a very interesting experience. My clothes just leaked. You know, after 2 hours inside there, I had to just wash everything. But that was in Westfield. We're moving from the factory series onto another Holyoke-based project, which is the public schools in Holyoke. At the time, a third of the teachers had been laid off in the Holyoke public schools, and the students were protesting on City Hall the right to have an education. And this to me seemed bizarre. In the 90s, students were actually protesting for an education. They were trying to get money back into the Holyoke public schools. This particular person is a family friend. And I think his mom tipped me off that there would be a walkout in Holyoke, and 300 high school students were going to march to City Hall and hold up signs and demonstrate and say, you know, basically say, we want our education back. That's what the sign in the back said, we want our education back. Now I thought, you know, lived through the Vietnam War, I thought that was, you know, that's the kind of stuff to protest with. And the thought that students would have to fight for an education in this country seems to me to be bizarre. And yet they do. Public schools are criminals. And I use Holyoke as an example of that. Is that the police officer asked him if he would sit in the cruiser and talk to the students and get them to go back to high school. he was going to go back to the school, which he did, and then I followed him back to the school, and there were basically administration and tiny pockets back and forth their classes. Parochial school in Holyoke, right across the street from the Lawrence Public School, which, you know, that church that burned down a couple of years ago? Well, this is the school that was attached to the church. Now, many of the parents put their children out of public school and put them into the parochial schools because, you know, the idea of being able to get children to sit still and behave and, you know, rows and may give them a chance at an education. Whereas in the public schools, there was a lot of chaos and it was much harder to educate children. I love kindergartners. I just walked in and he had to show me that somebody had taken a picture of him, and I thought, what a wonderful image of him reading. This was a part of the exhibit Facing Education, Portraits of Holyoke School Children, which appeared here in the gallery. And then you see this. Now, this is a situation where, you know, when you live in poverty, you get abused. I think the student probably was hit, and you can sort of see the mark in her eye. Many of the children go to school having been abused the night before. And it's not the fault of their parents or the, you know, the community or the race or that sort of thing. It has a lot to do with the economics of the situation, with the stress that people are going through. The fact that those factories were closing down all around them and people didn't have jobs. And, you know, they were out of work. And then the schools, you know, had too many children per teacher. And there is enormous stress in Holyoke. And, you know, this campus is only, you know, it's only a couple miles across the river. There's that. And yet, to see the distinction of class and race with that, you know, that kind of proximity, that sort of thing interests me. How we can have pockets of poverty and pockets of affluence right next to each other. And then, of course, you see this wonderful friendships that develop between, you know, children of different races. You know, one of the white parents told me this was Martin Luther King's dream. Holyoke could have been his dream. It could have been an entirely integrated society. They tried to do that as an experiment, and they actually succeeded for a little while there. But then the education budget cuts set in and ruined the entire work that had been done, pitting people against one another, pitting the white community against the Puerto Rican community. And this is the sort of thing that sets off violence. There are reasons why there is violence in Holyoke. And then the conditions in the schools. You go through and see the ceiling tiles falling. You know, I think your environment, I mean, we're shaped in many ways by our environments. And I think this is kind of what informs my work. It's sort of a study of how we are shaped by our environments. Why does one person get to be in this environment and one person get to be in another environment, a much more affluent environment? Just as a footnote, I went from doing this series to being an artist in residence at the Addison Gallery of American Art, and my project was to spend a year, 4 weeks out of a year, photographing students at Phillips Academy. And that was an eye-opener, to go from this to that. And then the New York Times California edition ran a picture from Holyoke and a picture from Phillips Academy side by side. You know, in an article. Actually, it was in a paid advertisement against school vouchers. There it is. School vouchers for the rich. Well, it wasn't long before I heard things like, you know, these children were going to visit relatives in jail on school vacation. I never even stepped foot in jail. Visit a relative anymore. And yet that's what children were doing. Children. And so I decided I needed to do a series on prisons, and I decided to shoot it in Massachusetts, the liberal state of Massachusetts, with such affluence, with so many universities, to actually go into the prisons where people don't go and have a look and see what's going on. This is Deer Island Jail. It's in Winthrop. It was in Winthrop. It took me 6 months to get clearance to get inside the facility. They finally called me a week before they were going to close it and take the inmates over to a brand new prison. They thought it would be good to have some pictures for posterity. And I just jumped in the car and went, this is my chance. And I went, and this is what I saw. 3 tiers of cells of mainly people of color. So close to Boston. And this really shook me up. I mean, I remember leaving that facility and I was literally just shaking. I could hear the voices of the men. You could hear the yelling going on in these cells, the echoes of the voices, voices. To take this picture, because this is about art, and I suppose I should say some things about how I make pictures. I had to get on the floor. I had 5 people in a group. I had security with me. They didn't really want me on the floor, but I asked, and they said, no, go. But they also warned me that I could be in trouble, that people could do things while I was on that floor. And I won't go into specifics, but very ghastly things happened to me. And I decided as a photographer that I really didn't care what happened to me. The chance to get that picture was worth whatever could possibly happen. And also as an artist, I have to be sensitive to the groups that I'm portraying. These are people of color. Do we want to just stereotype them as prisoners? I'm concerned about that. So what I did was in one of my presentations, a black man came up to me, and said, that picture makes me want to fight hard. He said, would you send me a copy of this picture? And I decided at that point that it was worth pursuing this kind of work. This is the prison where Malcolm X did time. This is the Charles Street Jail in Boston. It was one of the more visual images. Prisons are pretty horrible places to be in. Many of them are dungeons, and this one really was. But I was intrigued by the writing on the wall. I think the photographer is always interested in the hand of man, and how people communicate. And obviously somebody in the cell was trying desperately hard to improve something in his life. Chances are it didn't make much difference. It did for Malcolm X. He actually came out of this jail and went on to do his work. So that's upon the human being. Here's I think a very disturbing trend in this country. Women are becoming rising prison groups right now. These are 2 women who, one of them has the AIDS virus on the right, and I think, actually on the left. Some of the things I noticed in a women's prison, this is MCI Framingham, which mixes up murderers with drug addicts. I mean, it's just a real mix of people. But there is this camaraderie, there is some kind of humanity going on in the jail. I would go over to these people and talk to them as human beings. That's the assumption that I made when I went into a prison. I assumed that everybody is good. Everybody is born good, let's say that, okay? Everyone starts off as a child, as a baby, they're beautiful. What happens, And I think my belief in the goodness of human beings allows me to walk into a hard place like this and reach for the human being behind the act. I didn't even care, I didn't want to know, actually, the details of some of the crimes. Now, a lot of people incarcerated are incarcerated simply for drug addictions or selling and using drugs. Very violent people being incarcerated. But for me, still, you have to kind of believe in the strength of the human spirit to take on looking at something like this. And yet it has to be looked at because we have 2 million people right now, today incarcerated in this country. There's over 5 million people involved in the criminal justice system right now in this country, and it's growing fast. Prisons are the fastest growth industry we have right now, and it's frightening. It's very frightening to me. This is Walpole. It's notorious. It's the state's maximum security prison. It's a pretty desolate place. I think I have the slide of the Supermax prison within a prison. That's the latest trend in prison construction now, is to basically put people into heavy isolation for long periods of time. Let's see if I have that slide. Oh, beautiful. Just what I wanted. This is affectionately known as the kennel, which is where men are taken after spending 23 hours a day in an isolation unit in the departmental disciplinary units. They're brought out to this cage, brought inside, and then handcuffed for half an hour or so, where they exercise. And the theory is they need some fresh air. So it's getting on here and dragging them chained to the fence. That's their air. Now you wonder, if somebody isn't already disturbed as a human being before entering this prison, you wonder what the effect of the isolation units and this kind of inhumane treatment has on that human being. And there have been studies that show that a month is enough to destroy an entire human being in one of these isolation units. And I got to know some of the people that got out of them, because they all get out. Eventually they're going to be your neighbors, unless we have George W. Bush in Massachusetts with the death penalty. He'll be frying people left and right. We can count on it. The vote, they came within one vote in the last referendum. We're going to get a death penalty. So we'll add to this. We'll be executing people as if it was a solution to the human distress that brings about violence. One of the fortunate things I get to do in these projects is to work with some very bright people. I work with Dr. Mjhmtholyokecollege, who wrote one of the essays in this prison book, who talks about violence in human terms, explains where violence comes from. He worked with the most violent inmates in Massachusetts at Bridgewater State Hospital. And he listened to these men over and over again, and after hours of listening to them, he began to hear how they were treated as children. He began to hear the details of their childhoods, and you could fully understand how people go crazy after listening to the abuse that these people suffered as children. Now, I'm not condoning the acts. Obviously, I'd be crazy to do that. But I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to kind of step back as a documentarian and understand what exactly is going on. Why do these things happen? What's the situation? And how can we change it? And I think these are the kind of questions that we have to ask ourselves and not always react emotionally to things, because emotional reactions just bring more of this kind. This is the Camden County House of Correction in Ludlow. I'm glad you're getting to see these because, I live here in Northampton, and most of these photographs were just made around you. So in some ways, it's kind of, I hope it's a treat to get to see what's happening in your neighborhood. You may not see this much, at college as nice as this, and this was lovely because I get in my car and I drive here in the fields, it's lovely, and the sun's beautiful. And it's just lovely to be here. But then I go home and I see this kind of thing, in my work. And that creates a lot of tension. I'm not always the happiest person to be around after shooting something. If you look behind these men, you can see the isolation units. This is the classic prison cell that is now being built. I showed you before the old ancient dungeon with the bars and the guys standing behind the bars. Well, what we're doing today is we don't like the noise coming out of those things, even though prisoners communicate with each other and talk and yell or, just something going on. Now what we do is we build hermetically sealed doors, which each one of these is, and plexiglass slits behind the doors, okay? And put people inside of them. And you don't hear much. It's quiet. People are just dealing with isolation. Human beings are not meant to be isolated. We're born into our mother's arms. You can imagine what effect this has on human beings to isolate them for long, long periods of time. And I think this is the final slide in the series. This, again, is Camden County House of Correction. I enjoy showing this glass tower to school children. I showed it to school children in Holyoke and several other places. And they looked at it and said, "Is that the mall?" "Is that the mall?" And I said, "No, that's not the mall. That's the jail." But this is the idea of the prison panopticon Foucault talked about, where you constant surveillance. This is the new architecture of the prison. We're going to watch you all the time. And so you're seeing a lot of glass in the architecture. It's an isolation of yourself. So I hope you enjoyed, or maybe didn't enjoy, seeing the series. It probably lights up a little bit. Let's see how we did with time. I'd like to basically respond to your thoughts. Both as a photographer, you can ask me anything you want. Subject matter questions about the photograph. Don't be shy. Yeah.
If you wanted to get into places like that, I mean, if you go to prisons or maybe it's a hospital like that and you wanted clearance to be able to go in, how would you go about doing that? Who do you get in contact with? And like, how much do you have to push to get into there?
You have to be very persistent. Harder than getting into the prisons was getting into the Holyoke public schools. Okay. Truth. It took at least 6 months to get to the point of even getting close to it. I brought the project before first I went into George Counter's office. He was then the superintendent of public schools in Holyoke, and I said to him, "George, can I do anything to help the city of Holyoke and the public schools?" And he said, "Mike, this is great. I'm glad you're here. I'm all for it, but you're going to have to go before the school committee," which I did, and they turned the project down flat. They didn't want any light shed on Holyoke. It's embarrassing. They didn't want to be identified with this sort of thing. But I didn't give up. I could have given up. And George had said, "Well, we'll do what we can. I can't make promises here." I ended up meeting with the mayor of Holyoke. I was walking into his office one day. I spoke to him about this great city of his, and how I'd like to do help in some ways with education. And he was the swing vote on the school committee. We brought it back. I also lobbied the citywide Parents Advisory Council. I had 50 parents who agreed that this would be a good idea. So at that particular meeting, 50 parents, not 50, but several of the parents showed up at that school committee meeting, advocating for this project and wanting this project. And then, of course, the mayor had already kind of decided to go for it. And 6-4, I got in. And they gave me free rein for a whole year. I just walked around with a camera in any school I wanted to. Some of them didn't want me in the school. Some of the principals didn't want me. And I say, "Well, it's been passed." You have to be real persistent. Lewis Hine, went into the factories in the 30s, and he measured children by the buttons on his, the age of the children by the buttons on his shirt. It's a get a sense of how old these children that were doing child labor in factories was his interest. They didn't want him in there either, but he went in as an insurance salesman, or he went in, he was an imposter. He found ways to get in. Sometimes you have to do that. I don't do that, but people do that. Prisons were tough. Again, it took a lot of time. The thing about the prisons was that I got into one prison, and then I was able to say, "I've been at this prison, could I go into that prison?" And they'd say, "All right." Interesting story. I went to MCI Gardner. That was one of the first state prisons that I photographed. And there's a difference between jails and prisons in terms of the state has jurisdiction over the prisons, where the counties have jurisdiction over the jails, and that's changing. But at Gardner, I walked in there, and the guy said, you're not taking pictures of people, are you? I said, well, I came all the way over to do that. And he said, well, you can't do that here. And I said, well, I'm not leaving. He called down to the public relations department at the Department of Corrections in Boston and said, we got this guy standing here. We told him to come take pictures. He wants pictures of people. Nobody's going to the Massachusetts prisons and doing what I did. And it hasn't happened since I did it, and I don't think it can happen at this point. Because the security's gotten so tight now in those prisons, they won't let anybody do what I did. But what happened was Robin Guevara, her name obviously rings a bell. I had many conversations with her. We'll say, well, okay, as long as the prisoners sign a release form, media waiver form, so we'll let them do that. And I went through that prison and took one portrait after another. That's what I mean by persistence. You can get, I think you can get just about anywhere. I've photographed, in the stock exchange. Never thought I'd get in there, but I was persistent. There's always a neat way to kind of do it. We have some of our money with Merrill Lynch, so I went down to Merrill Lynch and said, well, gee, I'd like to photograph on your exchange board. Merrill Lynch is one of the largest investment companies in the world. And I said, I'm one of your stockholders. And I said, oh, okay. There I was at Merrill Lynch. These marvelous photographs. It's an incredible empire going on in New York City. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Good. All right. Yes.
I also have a question about where you studied photography, like when you go to grad school and what kind of stuff have you done? Where did you learn photography? What age did you start at?
Okay. I came very late to photography. I had a daughter. My first daughter was born, and I decided that I was going to go out of my mind if I just stayed home with her by myself. My wife was here today. Decided she was going to work outside the home. I was a guitar maker. And so I decided I had to study photography. And it was boring sitting around all day long with this infant in my arms. And so I started reading all the Ansel Adams series. Read them several times. Read everything I get my hands on. Just read everything. And then was fortunate to have met a doctor in the series, Hugh Tatlock, who donated this collection. And I'd go over to his house and he'd pull out Ansel Adams. Well, like you and I used to go out. I mean, Ansel and I would go out in Yosemite, and we took this picture. You took that picture. It was a sort of. He could tell me what Ansel Adams was thinking when he took some of his best work. So Hugh and I grabbed our large cameras and went out to the woods and tried to be Ansel Adams. That's how I learned photography. Yeah.
Have you taken any pictures of President Greenfield?
Oh, no. I wish to do that, but I never quite, by that time I had so much material, and the Deer Island jail, I think, is so similar that I just decided I had enough material. I also had enough of the prisons. You get kind of saturated after looking at about 12 or 13 of them. To try to get into every single one of your but that's a dandy.
Have you ever done anything down in Connecticut?
Summers, places like that.
No, there's a cluster of prisons within a mile of each other.
No, I haven't. I decided for this project I was just going to stay in Massachusetts.
What I was going to say is that my son was working in the area one day and the alarm went off. Choppers, cruisers, armored cars, the whole thing. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. It's a strange world. It's a very unbelievable world. Yeah.
So, would it be safe to say that you consider yourself self-taught?
I would say so, yeah.
And another question is, why do you, it seems that everything you saw is black and white. Can you say something about it?
Yeah. Well, I find that black and white takes you away from noticing the colors and how pretty those colors are, or how accurate they are, or whether they're not accurate or whether they're accurate. For me, it takes you away from the actual drama of the image. And that's the best way that I figured out to make the kind of statement that I want to make, is with black and white photography. I think these pictures would look very different if they were in color. And I have, by the way, done color. I used to take color film with me. I even did some prison color work. And I did a lot of the factories in color. After I shot the black and white shot, I went back to the color film and shot some of that. It's marvelous. It's just beautiful. These colors and, lovely, beautiful imagery. But that's what it is. It loses the power. It doesn't make the same statement as the guy with the dye rising from the vat, the acid rising from the vat. You would then be looking at the colors, and you wouldn't be looking at the acid. That's how I see it. Yeah, I think color is very interesting. Yeah.
Follow up on that question. On one level, the photographs are quite beautiful to look at.
Thank you.
They're really well, and
Yes, they're lovely.
very clear to take with great care and darker.
Yeah.
So there's a tremendous aesthetic sensibility.
Right.
And on the other hand, it's turned into social consciousness. And can you talk a little bit about the relationship between those two?
Yes. I'm an artist, first off. I make art. If it's not art, it doesn't work, period. So what I'm trying to do is make the best image I can possibly make. And, a fellow here at the Springfield Museum, Hollister Sturgis, who at the time had a show of my work down here, said to me, I hate to say it, but this work is very beautiful. And it is, if you look at it. I mean, it really is. Compositions are very interesting. The tones are very interesting in prints. But the ultimate is to have the power of good art go out and affect change. To me, that's when I won the lottery. It's when it actually does something. Now, Holyoke, and I didn't mention this because I'm not taking full credit for this, but I had that exhibit of photographs in the State House during the education reform legislation that was going on. The debates were going on the week that I had the pictures in the State House. Okay. A third of those pictures were taken down by someone who represented themselves as the custodian of the exhibition. We think we know who it was. Disappeared. We launched a Capitol Police investigation to find the photographs, and they mysteriously showed up 2 weeks later in a nurse's office. Now that's power. I wanted my photographs back. I was enraged that anybody could steal my work, my pictures and my work. But my father said to me, congratulations. If it didn't have that kind of impact, then it wouldn't be good. And by the end of the week, Holyoke had $8 million. They received $8 million. It went back into public schools. Now, I'm not taking credit for that. I worked with 100 people. There were a lot of people working for Holyoke, but that was very gratifying. Those pictures were shown at the State Democratic Convention. Mark Roosevelt called me up when he was running against Bill Weld and said, can I show these pictures and put them up on monitors? Hey, that's art out there. It's doing something. That's very exciting. Yeah. Question?
I noticed that you quoted the sentencing project in your factories and prisons.
Yes.
So I was wondering, besides your body of work, are you politically active at all with maybe the sentencing project or?
Well, Mark Maurer, who is with the sentencing project, and he's the man that does a lot of these statistics that you see. Whenever you see prison population statistics, there's always a sentencing project seems to come in and have their statistics. Mark is a fabulous guy. I went and heard him speak because I was so impressed by him, and that I asked if he would write one of the essays in the prison book, which he did. And really, that's my connection to the sentencing project. Questions? Yeah.
Talk about future projects, the places your work will be going. I guess I was thinking, in particular, with the results of the ballot questions, for example.
I'm so glad you asked. I was actually planning not to give election, but it just so happened that when Ralph Nader was here in Northampton, I went to take his portrait because I've just always liked Ralph. He was just always been around. I was in diapers and Ralph was out there fighting for social change. And so I said, I'm going to take his picture. So I called up the organizer of the event, who turned out to be my next door neighbor. And I said, can I get in and take Ralph's picture? He said, sure, come down to the press conference and we'll let you take his picture, which I did. And I brought a book with me. I brought a couple of books and I set them up. I posed very gracious about the whole thing. We started talking about factories, we talked about prisons. Before I knew it, walking out of the room, like, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, I'll see you later. And I walked in the room, the organizer said, do you want to go to dinner with me? Sure. You know, so we had dinner together. And we talked further about my work and other work. By the end of the dinner, he kind of leaned over and he said, you know, I've been asking every photographer in Washington if he would do a book on the inequities of social class and race in Washington, D.C. And if you do that book, I'll write the introduction. So I figured, okay, if I can stop thinking about this, which I would try to do, I won't do it, because I didn't need another project at that point. But I couldn't do after that. So this past summer, I photographed. We photographed in Washington. Yeah.
What makes you hard to do?
Well, that's the thing. You know, what's amazing about that project is every person that I don't have to say what I'm doing down there. It seems that every person I say, I'm taking pictures in Washington, D.C., and they say, oh, you mean, you know, the injustice of race and class? The contrast? I don't even need a title for the book. Everybody's got their own title. Now, isn't that interesting that many people agree on that? And yet, you don't see any books comparing that, you know. I went down with the Yale Child Studies Center. I'm doing a book with them. And they brought me down there to do an exhibit on Capitol Hill of school children. I'm just thrilled about to be working with them. There's 700 public schools that Yale oversees in this country, and it's all urban inner city schools. And I'm the photographer doing this book. And they brought me down there to do this exhibition at a national education conference. Now this is where the juncture of art, you know, and social change just excites me. So I'm down there, they put me up in this lovely hotel, and in the university, I told him about the project in Nader, and he says, well, why don't you go to the homeless shelter? Right across the street from the hotel. So I walked down the street, and there was this gigantic complex of homeless people picketing, holding up signs, because the mayor was going to close their shelter. Okay. I mean, this is the idea that's right there. Yeah?
Just to pursue on that idea, I really enjoyed looking at these images, but I was also sort of wondering why Ansel Adams, more than any other, I mean, that image was sort of coming back to me. Because these images are so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then when and you also described quite well how you compose some of them, like in the factory, or the very last one, which looks like a mosque. And then I hear you say that, I mean, these circumstances that you visited, prison or factories, are dismal, and there are lots of gory stories. Yeah. When I look at these photographs, I don't see those gory stories. And so, in fact, my response to the photograph is that they're beautiful photographs, but they're hiding something that would, that I want to know. And sitting at Mount Holyoke, which you correctly pointed out, is so complacent and so affluent and so forth. I'm looking in the photograph to see what I can look for to make me go there, not to see beautiful, confirm what you're showing in the photograph, but actually do something about them. Mm-hmm. And I'm unable to see that in the photograph. I see them as Ansel Adams, Yosemite, mm-hmm. and great photographs here, well composed. Mm-hmm. And I want to know from you what am I missing, or I'm just being blind.
Well, I'm not so sure I'd say they're all pretty. If you look at some of the inside of those cells, there's a whole series of pictures that you're not seeing here of cells, of things that prisoners write on their cells. No human beings in them. And you'd be surprised, those kind of statements that you see on walls. They're pretty graphic. Yeah. On the other hand, I agree with you that the kind of work that I do is not the same kind of work as reportage. I'm not getting there with a camera looking for someone being beaten, right there on the floor. They have these SWAT teams that come in. They're all, dressed in helmets and heavy gear, and they're trained to go into cells. They're called extraction teams, and they go in to extract the prisoner. Now, you don't see me there when that happens. You see me under very controlled situations. You see me with the security all over the place when I'm in. They're not going to let me take a picture of somebody being brutally beaten. Yet those pictures do come out, and I have them, and there are people that have taken them, and generally it's the prisoners themselves. that took those kind of pictures and their power, and they're very worth showing. I'm sorry I don't have the need to show you. Yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting that you say that, because I think compositions are beautiful. And then the people are beautiful too. So there's sort of two beautiful things in that. But I see things that are disturbing in your photos. You know, I see the isolation, the sort of barrenness, the kind of grime, the sort of inhumanity of the castrate situations. You know, I think if you look, I think it's actually pretty harsh and pretty glaring, but it's not sort of, it's not like the way movies are nowadays, you know, with all the explicitness.
Yeah, I mean, that's not what I do. Walker Evans said something which I thought was brilliant, the idea of contradiction in a photograph. The idea, you look at Walker Evans' work and it's beautiful, everything is beautiful. But if you look further, there's contradictions there. The signage, you know, what's said on the sign, these sorts of things. You have to look when you're in there. Other questions? Yeah?
What was the reaction of the prisoners or the inmates when you were taking the pictures?
That's a good question. Being incarcerated is a very boring experience. All day long, nothing to do, in a cell, no stimulation. And then some guy comes walking in there with a camera and he says, I'd like to take your picture. I'm doing a book on prisons. Well, sure. Most of them just said sure. They were, I think it stops the boredom for a moment. You know, you're engaged with another human being, which is exactly what needs to happen in prisons. Prisoners, we don't go in them. This fellow here probably hasn't, or maybe you would like to go into a prison. But if we could actually get into them and have some contact with those human beings in there, you know, then we might have a chance, you know, to actually change the situation. But the way it's set up, you know, that it's that difficult to have contact, you know, with prisoners. It doesn't lead towards much of a solution. So, did that help? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You said a lot of the prisoners are, well, they're not white. And how do you feel like as a white man really?
Oh, that's a good one. 60%, by the way, of prisoners in this country are people of color, and you know we're talking about 11 to 12% of the population are people of color. So that makes a clear statement right there. I mean, God, we're doing something wrong, aren't we? Well, you got me all riled up there. Ask me that question one more time. I just had to say that when I hear that.
I guess I was just asking how it is for you as a white man.
Oh, as a white man doing that work.
Doing that work, and how people react to that.
How they react to it. It's strange. It really is strange. It's sort of like trudging around in somebody else's neighborhood or somebody else's business. But yet I'm very dedicated to getting this out there. I don't care whether I'm black or white. And I'll tell you something, that it's generally the people of color communities that appreciate, believe it or not, this work. And I always show it to people of color. When I did the Holyoke series, I had people come to my house, you know, Latinas, come to my house and look at the pictures, and I thought, oh my God, you know, this is stereotyping. They're going to think, we're going to look at this and say, this is, you know, there you go again, you know. But their response was, thank you. Thank you for shedding light on this hard situation in Holyoke. You know, that's the response that generally I get from a photograph. So I'm safe.
Do you think, do you think that there are places you've gotten as a white man that you wouldn't be able to?
Absolutely. As a nice white man, okay? No black man is going to walk into one of those prisons with a camera and get where I got. I come across, everywhere I go, as a nice guy. Yeah. I mean, I come to Holyoke, a nice guy. Yeah. What a nice guy. I'm pleasant. You know, I go to Willis Hollowell. You know, I relate to, you know, everyone here. That's part of figuring out how to relate to people. You know, you're not going to get into places if you come in there with a big agenda on your hands. You know, like I'm going to prove something. You know, that's why I'm here. Nobody lets you in the door. And also, if you are a person of color, there's obvious racism operating. I look like a nice white guy. And I think I diffuse a lot of people's fear by, and I spend time with them. And I must tell you also that the correctional officers love talking to me. Administrators, the superintendents of the prison bent my ear because I'm a nice white guy. They start talking about all the hard things that happened during their day that they can't tell their wives. Nice white guy walks in. Yeah.
Do you have pictures of the superintendents and of the correctional workers?
Yeah, I do. I have several portraits of workers. There is an exhibit down at College now, several photographers. There is one of my photographs of a correctional officer in that exhibit.
Do you see any similarities between factory workers and prison workers?
Oh, please. In some ways, this is a hard one. It really is. Some of the correctional officers are not that far away from being prisoners themselves. The actual distinction between keeper, and kept isn't all that great. It's a very strange study. And I'm not sure. I think that there is the issue of imprisonment in factories. There is the dull, boring, stuff that goes on in factories, which in some ways is like incarceration. Same thing happens in school. My daughter's incarcerated every day of her life. She comes home and tells me she's bored. Not Leah, my other daughter. But I mean, isn't that odd and strange? I mean, you are in a forced situation, compulsory education, and people learn, how to behave in that kind of institution. That's worth looking at. Other questions? Yeah.
I was thinking back to your factory project, because those are some of the first photographs I ever saw. And looking at them and hearing about the business about the factory owners going and looking and saying, wow, that bad.
Yeah.
It sort of shocks me that photographs like that can be on the wall in a public place, and that an organization like government's OSHA doesn't, I mean, that someone doesn't blow the whistle or say, why are these people working in conditions like this? I mean, obviously a lot of these places have since closed, it's a moot point, but there are plenty of places that are still open all around us that are exactly like that.
This was one of the main issues that came up going into the Holyoke factory, was I was going in like OSHA. I was going into
Well, that's what
docking.
occurred to me. I mean, it still amazes me that you get into these places, but of course I know that you're such a nice guy.
Nice white guy.
But still, I mean, did anything like that ever happen after you did the factory pictures?
Well, it happened by itself. I don't know whether I had anything to do with it, but OSHA did investigate several places that I photographed in after the fact and find them large sums of money. Now, I don't know if it had anything to do with my pictures. It may have, been about to happen anyway. The other thing about OSHA you have to realize is it's a very disempowered organization. I mean, there's not enough OSHA to go around to cover all of these environmental hazards and work hazards that people, deal with every day of their lives.
Right about the same time you were making those factory pictures, I know that OSHA people come on these camps all the time, and they go tearing through the studios on the top floor of this building, pointing out all these hazardous circumstances. And, I mean, anybody who walks to the third floor of this building can see that any hazards that might be out there are nothing compared to what you see here. So they're not that spread.
Right, exactly. I think you have to look into the politics of this country right now, and you have to look what happened with Bush, what happened with Reagan, how they took apart. This is why Nader, excites so many people, is that he is like a government watchdog. He is a one-man, well, not a one-man, but he has an operation. He's watching, and this, I think, interests a lot of people. Our government isn't doing that, and that's one of the problems. We don't have oversight of the kinds of things that we're seeing here. And it's unfortunately, that's the trend. OSHA used to be a lot stronger than it is today, but it's been defunded. How are we doing with time? Oh, 8:06. Well, it's been a delight to talk with you all. I really enjoyed it.